Hey folks, it's Rob Flux here with another Sunday session, and today is a very special one. We don't do these very often, but it's called In the Beginning. It is following the journey of mega successful property developers and property investors in their space and taking them all the way back to deal number one, because it doesn't matter how big and how successful you are, everyone had to start with deal number one. It's a way to motivate and inspire our audience out there to say that it doesn't matter where you're starting, but you can achieve massive outcomes. Now, today I've got a very special guest, Steve Maroun, so from Lanevick. Steve, welcome aboard, mate.
Rob, thanks very much. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, mate. Now, we met at the Urban Developer Industry Awards, Industry Leader Awards, going back close to a year now, I think. Maybe
That's
not quite
right.
that long, but
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. We weren't fortunate on the night. However, I think we were in the losers camp, you and I. So
yeah, we were both nominated.
Yeah, that's right.
So enjoyed a lovely dinner and some nice drinks, and got to clap at a couple of people a little more worthy than us on the day. That said, mate, you've done some fantastic things in your world. Now, a lot of people may not have come across Lanevick. So why don't you give us the 2-second tour of Lanevick, because you're doing some massive things. Over 2,000 homes constructed and 30 plus years experience, mate.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. We're a boutique family business. We develop and construct in-house. We're focused predominantly on the eastern seaboard of Sydney. We've sort of grown from that medium to high density and then had to pivot after COVID. And we focus now where my father originally started 30 plus years ago in that luxury residential space.
So now you mentioned, I guess, your father. So this is a business that he was an immigrant from memory. So
That's right.
So he himself has been somebody who's come from nothing. Give me some insights.
Correct.
Give me some insights into his journey.
Yeah. So his journey started in the mid '80s. Immigrated from overseas with the typical immigrant story, just a shirt on their back, no grasp of the language. Had to go into a trade. They started cement rendering. He steadily grew his business, and about 10 to 15 years after starting here, him and his brothers delved into property development. They started in the late 90s, rode the Olympic boom, did quite well for themselves. GFC came, wiped out pretty much everything except family house, and that was when that simultaneously culminated with myself finishing secondary school, and the journey of Lanevick started in that 2013, 2014 time.
So, so I guess in that transition period, though, you didn't go straight into jumping into the family business. You yourself went on
No, that's right.
A little bit of your own journey.
My personal story, that's right. So my personal story was academically, I did quite well at school. I didn't know what I wanted to do after finishing secondary school. I just knew that I wanted to be in business and just make money. As taboo or as bad that sound, that was my motivation. I think because of the struggles financially, I think growing up, that sort of impacted myself. Anyway, I finished school. I decided to go into and start a law degree because I did quite well at that in school. And remember walking into my first class and fundamentals of law, and I was like, I do not want to wait 4 years to go down the route of being practicing solicitor, opening up a firm, and going and doing that. So I was like, what can I do? And I picked up some handyman skills, and I'd learned some some things in the holidays and the weekends and whatnot. And so I was like, I'll go and start a property maintenance company. My value add is that I'm a one-stop shop, and my idea was, I'll get the work and I'll find someone that can help me, with the work. And so I printed out a list of 100 local real estate. I went and started door knocking. I had to grow this beard, had to get some good beard oil, and so I then was fortunate enough. Exactly, I was fortunate enough. I remember the first lady, her name was Olga. She gave me a shot at my first property maintenance job. It was to change a couple of fence paling, and that sort of slowly grew from fence paling to painting a room, to then renovating a bathroom, to renovating a kitchen. And so over those next 3 years, I was literally going and studying, and at the same time had this property maintenance company that was doing quite well for itself. We were then fortunate enough to pick up a government contract inspecting social housing. And then the opportunity came up, and opportunities don't. I guess in hindsight now, it was such a huge opportunity, and at the time it just seemed like it was the right transition. The house came up next door to the family house, and we made the decision to go ahead with it and acquire the block of land. And what that acquisition meant was that we were able now to amalgamate my parents' home and put a development application on that for apartments. And so
So being clear, this is your first deal, right?
it's very unorthodox, and
Yeah.
but it sort of it came from an opportunity that, I guess, being younger and being a bit naive about what the struggles are, seemed right at the time, and so we were able. So that was the opportunity there.
Okay, but at the exact same time, while you said you picked up the site next door and you're going to amalgamate that with Dad,
Yeah,
uh, Dad had just gone through his own financial difficulties himself with the
correct,
GFC, and so
correct.
whilst it sounds really good, hey, I'm teaming up with Dad. He's
Yeah,
got all this industry experience, and sounds like
correct.
the nice gravy train, but in reality, Dad was in a bit of trouble.
It was quite the opposite. That's exactly right. So if it wasn't for those 3-4 years, or those 3 years prior with the property maintenance company doing what it was doing, there would have been, no chance at all. It would have had to just go traditionally through an auction, and it probably, would have been someone else's story.
So, but what happened to Dad? Why was Dad in difficulty, and why was
Yeah.
this
So
both an opportunity for you and also, I guess, an ability
yeah,
to help
great
the family?
question. So at the time, during that GFC period, the banks they start calling in their construction loans, and particularly in commercial lending, it's a very, very, I guess, dog eat dog world. And so at the time where the GFC started, there was millions of dollars of product on the market, that my father and his partners were involved in, and where the values are estimated at 600,000, say for a two-bedroom apartment. All of a sudden, the bank's values came in and slashed that at 300,000, and you have to come up with the shortfall to maintain the LVR that was required. And so, pretty much, they came in, overtook, sold them. They made the profits. Just it was quite, as I said, quite dog eat dog. And so it pretty much put my father and his partners back on back on their journey that they started 20 years earlier.
Yeah. One, I guess, force that was outside their control, being the GFC, has taken
Correct.
away 20 years of hard work and
Of
hard
hard
effort.
work, but the lessons stayed there. And I think this now sort of culminates into the first key takeaway, which is mentors. I think you only do learn from mistakes, but they don't need to be your own. And so that was the key takeaway for me was, okay, great. You've been through this, and we can now take away from this what went wrong, and we can ensure that this new foundation that we're building, it has we can avoid it of those risks, I guess.
Yeah. Now, this particular project, amalgamating the two sites, you said apartments. It wasn't the smallest project on earth, mate.
It, it wasn't at all. And again, it comes back to being, I guess, young and naive. I mean, you sort of, I think, as developers, naturally, you're just optimistic, and you don't. I think there's a great saying: "Ignorance is bliss." You honestly do not know what you're getting yourself into until you're in the middle of it, and you've got no option but to keep going through. And so, as I said, for me, that was the opportunity that presented itself, for myself. And I just assumed that, I guess, with the experience of the mentor being my father there, along with my willing to learn and willing to adapt and willing to grow, we'd be able to get through it. And so it started the process of commissioning the first surveyor out on site, starting with the architect, starting with the environmental consultant, starting with all the engineers and whatnot. And it started a 4-year journey, which probably should have only been a year journey, because you've got, you've got an asset, you're working on a DA, but we were just working and putting it back with consultants, working, pumping it with consultants, working, and so it started, I guess, a journey of persistence, sweat, blood, and tears, and we were looking back now. It's almost it's extraordinary when I think about how the hell we got through it, but we got through it and got to that point.
So just to put it in perspective, because I don't think you've actually mentioned the deal size, this was 24 apartments for deal number one, folks. So
that's right. So
um,
it was 24 apartments, 4 stories over a basement. Yeah.
so yeah,
With nothing to compare it against, I mean, as I said, it just seemed right.
yeah. So for everybody out there that's been listening to me, I guess don't do that for deal number one. That would
Exactly. I think step one in your 9 steps is start small, or start in something that you can manage, or you can understand. Yeah, this is the complete opposite. So maybe we can take away what not to do from this.
Well, I can reassure everyone that you're not the only one who made that mistake. I went too big too early as well, and
Well, exactly right.
I went backwards after deal number one. I didn't quite go
And
24 apartments, but I did go 8. Yeah.
no, well, see, I went from after 24, we went to 2. So, and this is the thing, is that opportunity comes and goes, and I'm a big believer in that. When it knocks on your door, if you do not take it, it's going to go, and you don't know when it will come back. And I guess at the time, as I said, it just seemed right. It seemed like the stars were aligned, and so we decided to go down that route. But yeah, to delve now into the story of that particular deal, over the next, as I said, 4 years, culminated in working on that development application, working in that approval. We were successful in obtaining the approval. And then we looked at ourselves and were like, okay, we now need to get this funded. And funding and finance I started to learn about that world. And soon I realized it was like, it means nothing that you have land. It means nothing that you've got a development approval. This whole game is finance with, I think there's that saying, with some houses thrown in the middle, right? And and I was like, this is just extraordinary. Like the I guess the servicing and leverage and interest rates and line fees and application costs. It's like, what the heck? What is this all? Like, we just have this vision, we want to deliver it. Just can't you see the? And so we had to start thinking creatively, and it started an 18-month journey of understanding how we're going to get this thing financed. And we were fortunate enough to be able to raise some seed capital. On the back of that seed capital, we were able to finance through a big four, and we had solved this huge problem and learned so much along that way, and positioned us to start construction.
Yeah. So for anyone else out there, when you're starting to do deals of this size, residential lending just doesn't work, folks.
So we had to go through residential lending for the acquisition. So we understood that realm, right? However, the deal size that you're financing on acquisition versus the construction loan, as you know, is you need to then go to commercial lending. Like there's no other option.
Which means you need to raise equity, because commercial lenders want to make sure that there's enough skin in the game that if the project goes south, that they don't lose, because they'll only ever lend you money the day you prove that you don't need it.
Exactly right, mate. They come in at the back end after you've put up all your blood, sweat, and tears. So we're positioned right. We're ready to start construction. Our ducks are in order. Finance is approved. Our DA, our construction certificate is there to go. We break dirt on the first day, and the government declares a national pandemic. And this is 2019. This is 2020, February 2020. About, what's that, 5 years ago now. And we looked at each other, father, the team, and we were like, what the hell are we going to do? And my father, to his credit, and again, riding on the experience of your mentors, he had only one answer, and the one answer was, you've got to put your head down and just do what you can do you can control only what you can control, and everything outside is not in your realm. You leave that, let that be. So we put our head down, and it turned out to be the best time ever, and probably the last time ever to construct in New South Wales. They opened up Sundays. Labour was at an all-time low. Supply was at an all-time low. We were able to build these apartments in 10 and a half months from start date, which in today's timeline is about an 18-month program.
Yeah.
People were doing anything they could do our trades were just doing anything they could do to just get out of the house. So construction was a critical industry. And so we were just rolling, and you couldn't do anything other than work. And so we were very, very fortunate now, looking in hindsight, that we did continue, because a lot of other developers, they closed the fences, and they're like, we just want to wait to see what's going to happen. And so we were very, very fortunate that we put our head down. We had no other choice, to be honest with you, and persevere.
So push forward, and then at the tail end of that, I guess the building bonuses came out and all those sorts of things.
The government, if you remember, I think Scott Morrison at the time, just pumping and stimulating their moneymaker, being the property industry, and so home builder, first home buyer grants, stamp duty concessions, and our product was perfectly placed to pick up all that value add from the government policies. And so these 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and one bedrooms were just flying out the door. They were perfectly placed, perfectly located. We were fortunate enough that we were able to sell these things at the back end at a time a lot quicker than we originally thought.
So I guess, and it would, located very close to train station.
Correct. So this is Western Sydney, Parramatta area, and so generally the zonings in these areas. I mean, if it's zoned for high density, I think the state government has done their research before you to understand that they want density there. However, at that time, being with the amount of immigrants that were coming overseas, well, at that time there was no immigrants coming overseas, but given the property being such a critical part of our government's revenue, they realised we need to keep this beast alive, and so they just stimulated it and pushed it up, and that culminated to that 30-40% increases in construction, which was led from inflation, and it was the same thing that was happening worldwide.
Yeah. Yeah, like logistical supply chains were causing all sorts of problems in the construction side, but at the same time, because the building boost, the building grant was there, that was creating a need and a drive that was compensating that from a sale perspective.
Correct. So it was demand side incentives, and we were, as I said again, perfectly placed to benefit from that upside.
And the fact that you constructed everything so quickly meant that your exposure to those, building cost increases was much shorter from a duration perspective. So you didn't.
Rob, we honestly, again, looking at it in hindsight, we jumped on the last train that from the war zone that we have now. we were literally. We started seeing, and this now sort of transitions to the next stage, which was we sort of, comparatively started here and then had to pivot because we started to read in America the inflation, what it was doing there, the construction rates, what it was doing there. And we were doing feasibilities here and we were doing, real deep analysis here and trying to, okay, what's the next thing? What are we going to do next? And we've had this 4 or 5 year journey, and we honestly couldn't find anything that we put down DD on a few sites, lost a bit of money there, but I guess we learnt from those lessons, and we decided that we were going to get out of investment product in Sydney and revert back to actually where my father actually started, which was building luxury boutique in Russell Lee, and so we then pivoted to starting in duplexes.
So you've gone from 24 down to 2, from deal 1 to deal 2.
Exactly right.
But,
So maybe
but
we should tell people what to do. Let's start from deal two and start that journey.
well, again, whilst I didn't do 24, my very next deal was a number two as well, for most of the reasons that I think you're about to say. So why did you
Yeah.
go back to a duplex, mate?
Yeah, so really it was market driven, but it was also fundamentally, I think where the business was at, it was literally at a very early stage, and so we had to revert back and build back ground up. There was an opportunity, being the apartments, we capitalized on that, we were able to complete the project, but it was very sporadic, right? And it was very, I guess, all over the place. You know, I was wearing 4, 5, 6 different hats. I was wearing, the same amount of hats, and everything was everywhere, right? Because it was the outcome and the goal was just to complete this project, so all hands are on deck. When that completed, we then had our brains back about us. We could think, we were, I guess, financially, we weren't as burdened as we were previously, and so we had to then go back to square one and build ground up, focus on our systems, focus on our operations, focus on our structures, and that coincided with the market, I guess, pivoting to more the owner occupier space. And I guess with the capital that we had at the time, we then, I guess, started again in duplexes, and that started the journey in I think late 2020. We started from duplexes. We then found that, and it wasn't just duplexes; it was more owner occupied product. That was our whole shift. Our shift is we want to service owner occupiers, and so from I think we did the 3 duplexes. We then pivoted into a 3-lot subdivision infill. Sorry, 4-lot subdivision infill. Then a 2-lot. Then we did this is coinciding with so we had sort of 2 channels that we were running. We were running a infill land sub sort of arm and a boutique luxury residential arm. And we started, as I said, the 2. We did a 4-lotter, then a 2-lotter. Then we did a. Well, right now we're doing a 14-lotter. And then the top arm we did duplex. We then delved into terraces. And right now we're doing that sort of. One of our flagship projects right now is the 6 terraces in Randwick. And so we position ourselves in those centres that we know the state government really wanted density. I think when the Labor government came in, they made it quite clear, particularly in the state government in New South Wales, they couldn't afford or they didn't want to invest anymore to go out. They wanted to go up. And so we positioned ourselves in those pockets in both arms.
Yeah. So, and I guess for anyone who's been following me for some time, they're the exact same lessons that I'm teaching is understand where the transport corridors are, the growth nodes.
Yeah.
That's going to tell you where the density is going to go. And then depending upon the products that you're creating, you're either in the middle of where the density is, adjacent to it, or just within a few streets of it.
Correct. Most definitely. So we've been, so that's coincided. We've obviously been able to employ, options, delayed settlements with early access. I think that's one of the things you teach. We've been able to employ many different, I guess, property tools to build our pipeline now that we're very proud to have gotten to now. I think it's 130 or 140 million or something like that. And so that's where I guess we are now as a business.
And so congratulations, by the way, because that's mega achievement actually trying to do that, especially considering the short duration that you've actually done. I think you've done, just looking at your website, 2,000 plus homes in that timeline in some way, shape or form. So
yeah,
huge achievement, mate.
No, appreciate that. Yeah, look, we've been, as I said, very fortunate to be able to leverage on mentors. I think the biggest return that you can get in this earth is time. Like, I think, as you sort of know, when you sort of deal with the financial issues of things, the only thing that becomes important is time. And it's like, how can I quicken the learning curve so that I can get to, say, if a mentor's learnt it in 20 years, I can get there in 8 years. Or if a mentor's learnt it in 10 years, I can get there in 3 years. And so I've really prioritized learning from the mistakes of others, or learning from the taking away from others. And so that was where also personal development and throwing and immersing myself in those that are. It's funny, when we're in the midst of a crisis or the midst of a problem, we think we're the only ones that have ever gone through it, and that there is no one out there that there is people out there that have been through what you've been through, and they know how to get through it. Just go out and look for it, and don't be scared to ask for help. And so I think um, humbling yourself and really sort of understanding that, putting your ego to the side and saying, I don't know everything. Although I may have runs on the board, but there's still where we want to get to as a business. It's still a long way away, and so we need to continuously be reinventing ourselves and growing and putting ourselves in the deep end to really be able to, I guess, fulfill the potential that we've been, I guess, blessed with. That's one of my day-to-day sort of, I guess, maxims.
The fact that you went back to those smaller deals almost instantly, do you regret having gone for the big deal first go? Like, was it? I know that you said it was the right opportunity at the right time, but
Yeah,
would you have done it differently?
Yeah, look, I definitely look, if like looking back now, it's funny. I think the money that we made in the apartment project was the same we would have made. It was the same money we actually made as the duplex one. Um, and I think it was a lot more it was a lot more easier to take those learnings on a lower scale. Um, Development is incredibly high risk, and at any point in time, one minor issue can derail the whole project. And so, definitely looking in hindsight, I would definitely say, if I was starting again, it would definitely be starting in much smaller. Let it be a duplex, let it be a triplex, a four pack. I think learning on a smaller scale means that the failings that you make are not critical to the project success. And one bad project or one bad period in time, learning, looking at my father's experience, looking at many other developers' experience, can push you back 20 years, 15, 20 years. And so definitely, particularly if you're starting out and you've built up this nest egg or this investment, fund for yourself, you don't want to be, just, I guess, aimlessly, throwing caution to the wind.
No, I understand, and I agree with every bit of that sentiment, mate. So, like slight change here. So, in your instance, I guess Dad was a builder, and then you've now taken on the building mantle as well,
Correct.
and have your own builder's license. So,
Correct.
as builder developers, do you find that that's an advantage, or do you find that that's a disadvantage in coming in and assessing deals?
See, it's funny you ask that question. Ask a bank 5, 6 years ago before COVID, and they'll tell you our lending policy is about half what we'd give to traditional developers, right? Because builder developers were viewed as high risk. Today, you ask a bank, and they're like, "We don't want developers; we want builder developers." And so, to answer your question, there is definitely a competitive advantage when you do have that construction in house. However, at the same time, the downside of that is that you're not able to scale as quickly as a developer in that realm there. So the benefit, as I said, is that you're able to absorb more shocks because you're able to have, I guess, a developer's margin and a builder's margin. And that also depends how you buy, right? Like, this all comes back to how you buy. But traditionally, of course, you're going to have a builder's margin and a developer's margin. But the downside is that you have to spend a lot of time to build the operations in that construction arm, particularly in New South Wales right now. The last 4 years ago, the state government made a once in generation compliance construction overhaul in the class 2, which is the apartment space. And so right now in construction, and I think I've discussed this on a few other podcasts with a few other, I think Peter Esho and Mark Buros, I think I spoke to him about this particular issue, is that the regulatory burden right now in construction has created an environment where builders that are just traditional builders have just taken a backward step, and they're like, we're too old to have to learn all these new systems, to learn all these new ways of, all this compliance and all this, and it's resulted in an industry that is not capable of delivering what the government's, I guess, ambitious target is. But long-winded response to your original question, definitely an advantage, but also has its downsides.
Yeah, so I guess the summary side of that is the time and effort to actually run, and also the financial resources to keep the construction arm alive, us
Correct.
stopping your development arm from
Correct.
scaling.
It's a live beast in itself, right? It requires site supervisors, site foremen, contract admin. That's a fully fledged business in its own. And when its sole focus and purpose is to build just for the development arm, all of a sudden your development decisions and your acquisition decisions are being influenced by your building a pipeline, because you don't want to, you need to keep the business running, you need to keep the employees employed. And so that's where the disadvantage becomes, is like all of a sudden, when I'm competing, say, with someone like Rob negotiating on a site, I'm maybe thinking a bit more shorter time, because I've got 6 to 12 months that I've got to fill a pipeline. Where for you, you're probably like, well, there's 10, 20 other of these. Like, if this doesn't come to fruition, who cares? And so they say, negotiation, he who's more desperate loses, or something like that. So that's where the downside is.
I could see times where you have to take on a job in order to keep the guys constructed, and other times where you don't want to take on a job because the boys are flat out and they don't have the bandwidth, and so you don't want the holding costs.
Correct. But the benefit there is that you can potentially add value through a DA and potentially flick, right? Or you can, there's many exits at that point in time. And so I think the bigger downside is that now not everything stacks up, and so it's more difficult to, I guess, put projects in your pipeline that are profitable, that are not just projects that you can put on your website and say, this is what I'm doing, that they are actually profitable if you were to, get a builder at an arm's length contract, if you were to get, designers at arm's length. So it's not as, I guess, as exciting, or not exciting, I guess it's not as good as people may think.
Yeah. And mate, with all the deals that you've constructed, I guess in that timeline, so Lanevick as an organization's been, I guess, running for about 8 years.
That's right.
I guess with Dad and his industry experience, that's 30 plus. But just under your helm, I guess, what's been your proudest moment?
So definitely completing the 24 apartments. It was a culmination and a build-up of 4 to 5 years. It was everything. My sole goals and focus at the time was just to complete this project, and it was getting to the top. Well, not, I guess, the top in my world at that time, and completing this project when we completed construction and we had simultaneously settled on the apartments. And just sort of looking, at looking at my father and just looking at ourselves and looking in the mirror, it was almost this moment of like, it was like relief, but it wasn't what I thought it would be. It was almost like this sad moment. It was like, this is what I've been doing for 4 or 5 years. Like, we got here. It's almost like it's weird to put it in words, but it was funny. Like, what should have been the most proudest moment, which in hindsight started this period of deep, I guess, wouldn't call it depression, but a real downside of like, okay, what do I do next? Like, what do I, it's almost, I guess, you get to retirement and it's like okay, what's the next thing? Like, what, like there was no thought other than we need to just complete this. We need to complete this. We need to complete this. We need to complete this. And it was almost, we got there and it was, as I said, just difficult to put in words. So,
and I guess for me personally, when I drive past project number 1, I have the same, pretty similar feelings. You drive, for me, it's on a regular driving route that I go past all the time. So it's a constant.
Likewise. So I go to the gym and I don't need to go that route, but I take that street to always drive past, because it's just like, I just wonder, how it's looking and what's going on there. And it's just, it's sentimental. It is sentimental when you look at it, because it's just really, I guess, personal. Like in your it's your story. It's your story for 5-6 years. So I guess that's the great thing of development, is that you can see a tangible, I guess, statue, so to speak, of what you've done.
Yeah, and I guess we were chatting, I guess, before coming on air. It's not just property development that you're doing, but also personal development. I guess, and you touched on there at the end of that project. You kind of went, well, now what?
Correct.
Uh, what have you done, I guess, in and around your personal development journey, mate?
Yeah, so it's a good point. I had to look introspectively. I had to really look, deep down in myself, and sort of ask myself those questions of, where do I want to go in my life? What do I actually want to do? What does that look like? What does that smell like? What is that? And it's sort of, I'd always been involved in personal development, because it was honestly the personal development that helped me, or that enabled me to persevere through those really dark times from 18. I think I told you I was introduced to, I think, Jim Rohn at 18, and the Robert Kiyosakis, Tony Robbins, and were able to absorb, the learnings and teachings of these, these very, incredible people, and that helped me persevere. But then when I got to the stage where we had sort of, quote unquote, got there, it was a different type of personal development, and it was this process of introspection, looking within and asking myself, where do I actually want to go? What do I want to do? Where do I, where do I want to live? How do I, what's my lifestyle look like? What's my, what do I want to give back? What do I want to be known for? So all these questions started, and I think over the next 6 months, I started to work with a couple of life coaches at the same time as well. Worked with like, I really made a good focus on looking into what others did. What did others do when they sort of got to that process where they almost lost themselves. And personal development, I would say, is as one of my most favorite books. It's James Allen. It's called As a Man Thinketh. He says, the circumstances that you have around you are a result of your thoughts from 6 months, 12 months, 18 months ago. And literally where we are today is a direct result of your thoughts. And your thoughts start from that little thought when you're the alarm's going off and you need to get up, and you're like, oh, I'm tired, but like, I need to. You are completely accountable and responsible for where you are in your life. And it's simple as that. And although a lot of things that happen may not be your fault, they're your responsibility to make sure that you get over them. And so I think taking accountability and really understanding that you are flying your plane. You are you are in the front seat. If you want to go left, you can go left. You want to go right, you can go right. Do not blame others. Do not look at the economy. Do not look at your friend down the road. Do not look. Who cares? Who cares about that? Just look at yourself, compare yourself to yourself, and just beat yourself. Keep beating yourself. And that was one of the. I think I was a very, being very competitive. I would compare myself to what that guy was doing, what that person was doing, and all these social media and whatnot. And it was unrealistic, right? And it wasn't fair, right? Like my 5-year journey, I shouldn't be comparing that against someone's 20-year journey. And so I realized that this game is for me, and I should be competing against myself. And my criteria became, I had to be better than my 12-month self every year on year. And that became, I almost forgot it. I almost left everything, and I became focused on how can I beat myself.
Mate, very, very motivational and inspiring, mate. So thank you for sharing that.
Appreciate it.
Along your journey, though, I guess you touched on the fact, I guess, prior to our coming on air, that it wasn't all beer and Skittles, mate. You, I guess, while you were going through, I guess, coming through the COVID side of things and trying to help Dad through his project and that sort of thing. At one point, you pretty much got down to $0 in the bank.
Yeah, it was literally underwater. As I said, I think I remember I was working regionally, and I pulled up at a petrol station and filled up fuel. And I remember going to tap my card, and It declined once, and then picked up the other card, tapped it, and it declined as well. I was like, because normally, I had two accounts, and looked at my bank account. I was like, this is, I think there was an ATO payment or something that had been taken out, and I was looking at the gentleman there, and I was looking down. I'm like, it was the first time in my life where I was like to myself, what the hell am I going to do? Like, like I'm not going to run away, and I'm not going to. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? And so I went back to my car and I scavenged. I think like $50, or it was half of what it was earning. I literally told the general, I'm like, look, here's my license. Take my details. Like, I honestly, for some reason, don't have this here, but just take my details. And the point is that it was the first time where I sort of asked myself, where I questioned myself. I was like, am I doing the right thing? Like the journey that I'm going on, like, is this gonna, not is it gonna be worth it, but I'm like, is this part, like, is this normal? Like, is this, like, when you're by yourself and you're lonely, not lonely, but I guess when you're in you're in a quest to really, achieve an outcome, you're almost on this journey by yourself, and so you don't have anyone to sort of speak to, or at that time that can understand you, or that can. And so I really question myself. I really question myself of is this, is this the right path? And so definitely it's a whole, there's a whole dark world of, I guess, thoughts and emotions and feelings, and stories made of people, not doing right, I guess, by you, or you sort of putting yourself in positions to be taken advantage of. And there's a whole multitude of stories. And so I think the way that I look at it is that these are the learnings that are required for you to build the skin that's required to deliver the outcome that you want to set out to achieve. And so it's part of the journey. It's part of the journey. Just take it on, learn from it. There's no issue making a mistake. Just don't make the same mistake twice. That's my mantra. And so I don't, originally on, because I was so competitive, I'll be like, fuck, how did I lose? Or how did I? Now it's like, it's okay. If you made the mistake, great. Just do not fucking make that mistake again. Do not make that. If you make that again, then you can be angry at yourself. And so that's definitely, to answer your question. There's very dark times. It's very, very difficult in those early stages.
And hence self-belief in yourself and your ability, the strength in yourself to persevere and that sort of thing is super important.
Rob, it's an absolute, it's a prerequisite, resilience. It's a prerequisite in this game. Resilience, adaptability, resourcefulness. It's just a prerequisite. Like, if you're not there, life will force experiences on you to get you there. And if you do not persevere through it, you won't get there. And so, I think, the world we live in has a great way of bringing upon you experiences that are going to get you to where you want to go, if you truly believe that you want to get there. So I think it's just get through it. The other side, the grass is greener, I guess, on the other side. But yeah, particularly it's there are some very dark times.
Thank you, mate. So I guess with that, mate, really good segue into probably my final question here. What are the biggest lessons that you would like to impart on our audience, starting out, if they've not done their very first deal, if they're thinking, is property development the thing for them? Perhaps they're in their first deal and they're halfway through and struggling. What motivation can you give them to get through?
Yeah, great question. And I spoke to you, I think, about this backstage. I think the one key takeaway is mentors. It's just invaluable. It is invaluable what you can get from a mentor's experience. A mentor that's been and done this 10 years, for 10, 20, 30 years, and you can literally pay a monetary fee, and this is not an advertisement. It's just funny because you have a property development network and whatnot, but it is just unparalleled, the value that you get back from a mentor. And for me, that was my father early on, right? How were you able to jump into 24 apartments? You're a first, you're a newbie, you're this, you're that. but leveraging on the experience of the mentor put me in a position where I was able to ask the questions and position myself in a way that I was able to be apprehensive of the challenges that were going to come up as they were coming up, and come up with the solutions to get there. So mentors is absolutely invaluable. And the second thing I think is confidence, backing yourself. I think particularly when you're starting out, you're always double checking, triple checking, paralysis by overanalysis. I think there's a point where you have to understand, and you're like, I may not have every question mark ticked, but if I do not, like, the more I delay myself jumping into this first deal, the longer I'm going to be delaying the learnings and the teachings that I'm going to naturally learn from any first deal. You are never ever, particularly in the first deal, you are never ever going to be able to have every single base covered. If you were, then you'd be an experienced developer. So if the number, if it looks right, and I guess you've done your high level DD, and it's not, you're not just buying a site that has a tip underneath it or something like that. Like, but if the numbers are right, and the site feels right, just get into it. Just get into it. You'll find a way. You will find a way, and you will be so much better off of doing a deal where you only made, say, 15%, right? But compare that to the person that didn't do the deal and waited another 2 years and then made 25% on his deal. But you're 2 years ahead of the journey now. By the time that gentleman gets to that 25%, you're doing now deals that are 25, 30% because your experience is. So I think throw yourself in to start the skill building. The skills is what you want. You don't. The money is an outcome of that site, but the skills is what pays you back. There's that skills pay the bills, or it is so true that the skills that you're going to acquire from just starting the deal, the relationships you're going to get, the network you're going to create, you're only going to solve these problems when your money's on the line, and when you're stuck in the deal. And so that's why I'd say back yourself. Just back yourself, get in there, and just start. Just start.
So I agree with both of those wholeheartedly, mate. The one thing that I would say is back yourself with a mentor sitting over it. So you're not jumping
That's
into
why
the wrong
mentor
deal.
was number one. Mentor was number one, and then the second was back yourself.
Yeah, I guess because sometimes we can not know what we don't know when we get into a deal. So really important that you've got someone else sanity checking your deal. Steve, mate, it has been amazing with you sharing your journey. I greatly appreciate you doing that, and looking forward to catching up with you personally, I guess, and sharing a few war stories over a beverage or two, mate.
No, I appreciate it, Rob. And as I said, I really hope the audience can, take value away from that. And again, just touching on that last point, just get into it. Get into it. There's never going to be a perfect time. Just start.
Yeah, very good. With that said, mate, just for everyone else out there who's watching, not only do we run these Sunday sessions and share these sorts of stories, but we also run events all the way around the country. We run them physical and virtual. So you can turn up physically in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, or Adelaide, and you can hear real stories of real deals where people just like Steve are actually sharing their journey. Plus, you're getting to hear from industry experts, and also share in your masterminding and share your problems and your issues and challenges as you go. So if you're wanting to see us, we would love to see you at one of those upcoming events. Steve, been an absolute pleasure, mate, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Thanks, Rob.
See you guys.
Bye.